Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight, Wednesday evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Thank you very much for joining us. Our top story: 3 arrests after a man is shot dead in Whaley Bridge following reports of a burglary. A rural community is in shock, and we will have the latest live from the scene. Also tonight, a leading doctor died of the condition in which he was an expert, as his wife, a GP, had to monitor him on what his family says was an understaffed hospital ward. We're in the operating theatre as surgeons wait for a donor heart. It's the latest in our transplant series.
The team have just been told that the donor heart is half an hour away, so they now have to take out the patient's own heart to get ready for that.
We'll meet the woman who bought a Lakeland mountain and planted a forest, all to help the environment.
And it's been another fairly warm day today. Is that going to be the story for the rest of the week and into the weekend? I'll have all the details a little bit later on in the programme.
So first tonight, 3 men have been arrested, one of them on suspicion of murder and attempted murder after a burglary at a rural property in Whaley Bridge. Derbyshire police say that they believe the incident was targeted. Let's go live to Mairead Smith. She's close to where this all happened for us tonight. Do we have any idea about any of the details of what actually went on, Mairead?
Well, Roger, I am on Eccles Road, high on the hills above Whaley Bridge in Derbyshire this evening. As you can see behind me, a police car is blocking off this section of road. Further along it, another police cordon. That has been in place since around 1:20 this morning, when officers were called to a property. They found a man who'd suffered fatal gunshot wounds. Another man who had been shot was found on the road nearby. He was arrested on suspicion of aggravated burglary. Now, Derbyshire police say they've also arrested a man on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. And then this afternoon, another update that a further man was arrested in a vehicle he was travelling in nearby, close to Chapel on Lithtrith.
So, Mairead, early days in this police investigation, they're trying to piece it all together, I guess, at the moment. What do we know, if anything, about the person who died, or indeed any of those who've been arrested?
Well, yes, Roger, as you say, there are a lot of unanswered questions here this evening. You know, we don't yet know if the man who's died owned the property or if he was involved in the burglary. We don't know if the person being questioned on suspicion of murder, what his involvement was, why he was at the property. But Derbyshire police have released a statement this evening. They say they appreciate the impact this incident is having on this small rural community. We are aware there's been some speculation locally around this, and while we are in the early stages of the investigation, we believe this is a targeted attack. Now, I spoke to some people who were out walking this afternoon. They didn't want to appear on camera, but clearly they were very shocked by what has happened here. Police say that there will be an increased presence of detectives in this area as they try to piece together what has happened here, and they're asking for anybody with information to get in touch. Back to you.
Mairead, thank you. Mairead Smith there. Now, a man who was described as one of the brightest doctors of his generation died in hospital after what his family claimed were mistakes by the doctors treating him. An inquest into the death of consultant Amit Patel heard today from one of those doctors who said he couldn't explain what went wrong. Previously, inquest had heard that the ward at Wythenshawe Hospital was understaffed and that Dr Patel's wife, also a doctor, had to carry out medical observations on her husband herself. Eunice Muller sent this report.
Professor Amit Patel was described as one of the brightest doctors in the UK. He became ill in the middle of August, and by the end of that month in 2021, his condition had rapidly deteriorated, and that's when a national panel of experts were called in because of the uncertainty surrounding the management of his condition. He felt he had HLH, a rare immune disorder. He was also an expert in this condition, and he had given national guidance on it. This panel of experts included Dr. Jessica Manson, who knew the doctor. She said he was unwell and frightened. She said they had to look for the underlying causes. That could be TB, that could be cancer, or it could be Still's disease. But she said, first and foremost, she had to rule out cancer. And that's why they called for an EBUS, that's an endobronchial ultrasound, which checks for lung disorders. Now, Dr. Patel had wanted to sit on this panel and advise on his condition, but he wasn't allowed to do that. Dr. Manson said that she didn't know about that request, but anyway, patients, she said, had to all be treated in the same way. Now, during this hearing, Dr. Tanner, Dr. Patel's widow, was listening to the evidence. At one point, she became emotional and the hearing had to be stopped and she left the room. Now, the family have complained about an understaffed Wythenshawe hospital, but also they believe a lack of care that was given to her husband. Now, this ultrasound, this EBUS, was carried out on the 1st of September by Professor Booton. He's a leading expert also at the Northwest Lung Centre, the largest in the UK. He's carried out 7,000 of these procedures, but during this procedure there was a bleed and complications, and his condition continued to deteriorate and he died in October of 2021. Dr. Patel's family say he had Still's disease, a rare inflammatory condition, a form of arthritis, and they believe the right diagnosis had been made at the right time that would have improved his chances of survival. Eunice Muller, BBC Northwest Tonight, Manchester.
A 16-year-old girl is critically ill in hospital tonight after taking drugs and collapsing in an alley in Manchester last night. She's thought to have taken ecstasy before the police were called to Wilbraham Road in Chorlton by the ambulance service. A 21-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of supplying Class A drugs. A karate champion from Liverpool, who was one of the sport's most respected figures, has been jailed for 2 years for sexually assaulting 2 teenage boys. The judge said Andrew Sherry, who set up the Red Triangle Club in Everton and is now 80, had abused his position as a teacher. A controversial zipwire attraction in the Lake District has been approved, despite previously being rejected after nearly 90,000 objections. A National Park Authority committee approved revised plans for the Elter Water Quarry experience on the chairman's casting vote. The new plans include providing minibuses to reduce traffic. Now, a few weeks ago, we spoke to Dina Peacock, a victim of the infected blood scandal. Dina from Warrington got hepatitis C after being given an infected blood product in the 1980s. Well, she's told us today that she feared that she would die before a compensation scheme was agreed, but today cautiously welcomed the news that a timetable for payouts has been agreed. But there could still be pitfalls, as Andy Gill explains.
Dina Peacock at home in Warrington today. She was given blood transfusions after the births of her first 2 children, but the blood was contaminated with hepatitis C. It affects all aspects of her health.
I've got severe depression and anxiety. I have brain fog. I have gastro problems.
A year ago, the chair of the public inquiry into the blood scandal called for a full compensation scheme to be set up immediately. The government's faced accusations that it's been slow to respond. But last night in the House of Lords, it accepted a Labour amendment that the scheme must be set up within 3 months of the law behind it passing. On the face of it, good news. But parliamentary timetables and an expected general election could disrupt things.
We think 3 months is 3 months, but it's going to be a lot longer than 3 months. So, yes, I'm happy it's been put back in, but the way things have gone on, it could be next year still, you know. So we'll wait and see what happens with that.
What difference would it make to you to get the compensation as soon as possible?
It's really hard. I want to make sure my children are sorted. They suffered with me being ill. I didn't know I was ill, and basically they didn't have the best childhood with me. I was in bed for days on end.
Campaigners say getting compensation to victims quickly is essential because it's estimated that one person infected dies every 4 days.
Stop punishing us even more and stop making us feel unworthy of a life.
Dina and husband Dave will travel to London for the public inquiry's final report on May the 20th. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Warrington.
We wish Dina all the best. Now, it's polling day across the North West tomorrow, as I'm sure you know. Local and mayoral elections in some places, and of course an important parliamentary by-election in Blackpool South. And as our political editor Annabel Tiffin reports, with the general election, of course, only months away now, the big parties will be keeping a close eye on the results.
May the 2nd, a big day at the North West ballot box. We'll get to choose who runs our biggest city regions, our police forces, many of our councils, and there'll be a huge test of public opinion in Blackpool. The entertainment capital of the North West will play host to another by-election. Voters in Blackpool South will decide who they want to represent them in Parliament after the resignation of the former Conservative MP Scott Benton. It's one of those so-called bellwether seats.
Top Labour target, a big portent of what's going to come in the general election. Labour has to win it if Keir Starmer is going to be our next Prime Minister. The Conservatives are looking to hold on. On current polling evidence, Labour ought to win it. Nothing certain in politics.
We'll head to the polls in 22 local council areas. Labour is defending 17 of them, but there'll be key battles in the other 5 where no one party has overall control.
Burnley and Pendle were 2 top Labour targets to take overall control, but they've been hit by resignations from their councillors on both of those councils. Gaza has loomed large, and it's going to be very hard now for Labour to take overall control of those 2 councils. The big target for the Liberal Democrats is to take overall control of Stockport. It seems a perpetually hung council. The Liberal Democrats only need to gain a small number of seats, though, to take overall control. For the Greens, it's about increasing their presence. They do hold 30 seats across our North West councils. They're hoping to get that up to something like 36, possibly even 40.
The biggest jobs up for grabs, Metro mayors for our largest city regions, Liverpool and Greater Manchester, as well as the Mayor of Salford. Voters in Cheshire, Merseyside, Lancashire and Cumbria will also pick who they want to oversee the police.
A bad night for the Conservatives in our region would mean Conservative councillors disappearing altogether from several of our councils. If the Conservatives do melt down like that, then there is the question of whether Rishi Sunak will be leading the Conservatives into the next election.
Polls open on Thursday morning, but counting in some areas won't finish until Sunday evening. May the 2nd is a huge day at the North West ballot box and a final test of public opinion before the next general election. Probably.
Annabel will have it all covered, of course. Not everywhere, but if it is election day wherever you live, it is for me where I live, don't forget you'll need your photo ID in order to vote tomorrow. Now, this week, if you've been watching the programme, you'll know that we're following the work of the Manchester Transplant Centre, which specialises in heart and lung transplants. It's one of only 6 such units in the country. And over the past couple of nights, we've followed Sam Atherton through his double lung transplant. Well, just to warn you, there are some images of a transplant again in Jill Dummigan's report this evening, which begins as she catches up with Sam.
It's 6 days after Sam's surgery.
He had a couple of setbacks. His heart rate was through the roof, so they'd given some medication to bring that down. That didn't work, so they delivered a shock. And when you're not there and you're at home and you're hearing that second hand, it's really quite frightening. And I think it's left Sam with some memories because he kept saying, I've died, haven't I? And I said, no, you're very much alive and you're here with us.
At first, when I first woke up, I don't think I realised what had actually happened. And then I think later on when I was speaking to Nick when they walked in, then I think it all started flooding back. It was quite emotional.
For the first 3 days, Sam was kept unconscious.
They're not initially stable enough to come out and just be awake straight away. In addition to that, what we like to do is make sure that the new lungs are working really nicely and that we are in control of all of the kind of physiological variables that are actually going to affect that, so that we can make sure that he has the best kind of first part of that recovery as possible.
The Wythenshawe Centre's one of just 6 in the UK. Each of them also specialises in heart transplants.
Yeah, perfect. Great, thanks very much. Thank you. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
And today, Wythenshawe's been offered a donor heart.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. So it's a good graft, good function.
The heart was destined for another centre.
Hi.
But at the last minute, their patient couldn't take it.
It looks like the heart transplant's going to go ahead.
And Wythenshawe has a match.
So we called her in and she's delighted and grabbed the opportunity. Can I start?
A heart's the most time-critical of all transplant operations. After 2 hours out of the donor, the risks start to increase for the recipient, so the 2 operations have to begin almost simultaneously.
We always like to be ahead, and we would rather open, make sure everything is dissected off and ready to cut the heart out. And even if we need to wait for the donor team to do the retrieval, that is better rather than rush.
So the team can't wait for the new heart to arrive before removing the patient's own.
They'll say we are half an hour away. So that's the time I can confidently start cutting the heart out. If it's road, if it is by flight, we want to make sure it's landed in Manchester Airport. As soon as it's landed, we get a phone and I can cut out the heart because I know the heart will be here in 10-15 minutes.
I'm just waiting for some information about the donor heart and they're just cross-clamp now.
Okay, cross-clamp is on, perfect. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
They put a clamp across the aorta of the heart, stop the heart. So this is a really crucial time now for us.
But the donor heart is several hours away by road.
Okay.
And journeys can be unpredictable.
As they've got on the motorway, they've hit standstill traffic.
So that's what they're driving through
So
at the
that's what
moment.
they've got to come through, yeah. So the heart's going to come on blues now to get through this traffic. Yeah.
The journey and the operation continues.
Yeah, great.
The team have just been told that the donor heart is half an hour away, so they now have to take out the patient's own heart to get ready for that. Blood's now being pumped around the patient's body by a bypass machine while the team wait for the new heart to arrive. But at the last minute...
Yeah, they've had to divert off the motorway because it's closed. They're 5 minutes, 10 minutes away.
Finally, the operation to connect the new heart can begin.
So warm ischemia starts now, implant time.
To protect the heart during the operation, it's cooled with ice, while Professor Venkateswaran painstakingly connects it.
Take the needle and then pull it out.
40 minutes after beginning the implant.
Okay, ready with the heart shot?
The heart's ready to restart.
Moment of truth now. Ah, there you go.
To help the heart get going fully, it's given a mild shock.
Okay. This is great news. The new heart's working fine. She's off bypass, maintaining it. Good blood pressure, function looks good. So we are very pleased. Perfect, okay.
After an hour of observations, the patient can be stitched up.
I feel I've got an amazing job. It's very demanding, it can be very stressful. But just the ultimate outcome, we've known the patients who are having transplant from when they first come to the hospital for clinic. We see them struggling. It's just fantastic that they get this new quality of life.
Jill Dummigan, BBC North West Tonight at Wythenshawe Transplant Centre.
So understated, aren't they? Shaking hands at the end, I'd be high-fiving. It's absolutely incredible. Just to let you know, the patient who we saw there having the operation is doing well, as I sit here tonight, and we'll have more from Jill on the programme tomorrow. Now, this is Roisin Quinn. You may have seen her on the telly before. That's because the aspiring interior designer who lives in Wirral has just won the BBC show The Interior Design Masters. So I suppose she's aspiring no more, because winning it comes with a commercial design contract. Molly Brewer has been to visit her in her very colourful home.
She comes in colours everywhere. She combs her hair. She's like a rainbow.
Like to use colours. I'm very bold with my designs, and yeah, I like a lot of florals. It's the whole feeling for me. If I've created a space and it brings people joy and they walk in and instantly smile and feel like someone's given them a big hug, that's exactly what I want to achieve.
For former travel advisor Roisin, working in interior design was a career she dreamt of. But after being rejected from university to study it, the dream seemed somewhat unachievable.
I was devastated, and it was that classic imposter syndrome, like, oh God, no one's going to like my stuff, I'm pointless, you know, all that negative stuff came into my head. And then I applied for the show.
Viva Interior Design!
Roisin.
I just remember Alan trying to hand me a glass of champagne. I couldn't hold it. I was in complete shock when they announced my name. I was shaking like a leaf, yeah.
During her time on the show, Roisin impressed the likes of pop sensation Sophie Ellis-Bextor and created some show-stopping spaces.
There's loads to look at in it, and the colours actually are really beautiful.
And this is something that's replicated in her own home.
We've got to talk about the wallpaper. It's amazing. You almost look like you're matching it.
This is leftover wallpaper from my parents' house.
In fact, renovating her parents' house on the Isle of Man was the turning point for Roisin, her skills attracting attention on Instagram.
Me and my mum just had full reign, and I'm like, Mum, what do you think of this? She's like, yeah, I love it. My dad was always at work. He didn't really have much of a say. Like my husband, he has no say in the house or whatever. It's like, if I want to paint the room pink, it's going pink.
And, well, you know what you want, we'll put it that way. The glass fruit's the current one, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we're not sure what's next.
I love my fruit stuff. I don't even eat that much fruit.
To have some recognition for like how talented she is and what she's achieved over the last few weeks on the show has been, yeah, a massive sense of pride.
She's like a
Getting rejected from uni was a blessing. There's enough doom and gloom out there, so I think bring a bit of your childhood back and just throw a bit of colour on a wall, live in a little fantasy for a while.
Well done to Roisin, talking there about her success on Interior Design Masters to Molly Brewer. Now, when it comes to helping the environment, we are often told, aren't we, that planting trees is a good thing to do. Well, Sally Phillips here has more than done her part. She got the opportunity to buy a fell in the Lakes 3 years ago. It's about 160 acres. And in the time since, she's planted about 750,000 trees. Our environment correspondent, Judy Hobson's been to see her.
Overlooking Loweswater in the western part of the Lake District is Low Fell. With a summit of just under 1,400 feet, Alfred Wainwright described the views from here as a scene of lakes and mountains arranged to perfection.
We're just coming to the site now, so here's the boundary you got here at last.
So when the fell came up for sale, Sally Phillips jumped at the chance to own it.
It was on the market for a good long while, and I always keep my eye on land that comes up for sale, and no one else bid for it, so I managed to get it at a good price.
That price was around £148,000, but Sally hasn't just bought this for the views. She's restoring the land and creating a woodland.
I've always had a passion for the environment, and when you're concerned about the environment, there's a lot to worry about, and you can't do something about everything, but planting trees makes things better. So they're good for biodiversity, they're good for carbon capture, and they're good for flood mitigation.
Sally doesn't plant all the trees herself, but she can often be spotted here doing her bit.
We've got downy birch, we've got some rowan, and just a really nice mix of species.
How many trees have you planted, and how many do you intend to plant?
We've now planted about 275,000 trees across the whole site, and probably planning to put in another 50 to 100,000. We don't use tubes or stakes, so we plant in dense clusters, so the trees protect each other. We've got blanket bog, we've got heather and bilberry, so it's about having a patchwork of different habitat types.
Sally's company makes sustainable products, including draft excluders for chimneys. She invests 20% of the profits in a community interest company called Buy Land, Plant Trees. It means she can acquire more land and it's protected. It can only be used for improving biodiversity.
We've become accustomed to see views like this, which are completely bare of trees, but in years gone by, they would have been covered in trees, right to the summit. I always try and purchase land that is not very good for agriculture. It's not ideal for grazing, but it would be perfect for planting trees and nature restoration. I'm very lucky, and it's very, very rewarding, yeah.
Judy Hobson, BBC North West Tonight, Low Fell, Loweswater.
Really well done to Sally. I exaggerated, not 750,000 trees, 250,000 trees, but nonetheless, still incredible in the space of 3 years. She really has done her bit. And they've certainly had plenty of water of late, haven't they? Let's see what the forecast is looking like for the rest of the day today and for tomorrow. Here's Rich Davis.
Hello, good evening. Well, it's been a fairly decent day today. It started off pretty lovely with some sunshine at sunrise, a beautiful picture sent in here. And for the rest of the week, well, it's not looking too bad. It should be staying fairly settled, but it will be turning a little bit cooler and damper as we make our way towards the end of the week and into this weekend. So the chance of seeing some rain is turning a bit more likely as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend, through the rest of today and into tomorrow. Well, we do have this front that is pushing in some wet weather towards some part of our region, but generally I think we're looking at a dry picture as we go through most of tonight. You can see that rain's with us through the evening period, gradually turning drier and clearer as we make our way through to the early hours of tomorrow morning. Chance maybe of seeing some mist and fog build up as we head towards Thursday morning, but it's not going to be too chilly overnight. The temperatures down to 9 degrees Celsius at the minimum. So through tomorrow morning, it is going to be a fairly dry start. It should be quite cloudy at times in some places, but generally it's not looking too bad. We should have quite a bit of sunshine about through most of the morning, lunchtime and into the afternoon. Just the chance maybe of seeing 1 or 2 showers just filter in. They might be a bit heavy in nature if you do catch one, but most areas holding on to quite a bit of sunshine, particularly in Cumbria and Lancashire as well. Some blue sky and sunshine to see us through pretty much most of Thursday, and those temperatures on the rise up to 21 degrees Celsius. We are holding on to that warmth as we go into tomorrow. But as we go into Friday, there is a bit of a change on the way. It is a fairly overcast feel to the day. There will be some more spells of wet weather as we head through the course of the afternoon, potentially a bit longer than what we see over the next couple of days or so. And it is going to be feeling fairly cool in comparison, highs of just 15 degrees Celsius, although some places could get up into those high teens, as you can see there. So as we approach the weekend, you can see this area of low pressure is in charge. It is going to bring some spells of wet weather at times, and generally it is going to be feeling cooler, but we will see some dry and the odd bright spell.
After 2 postponements, it was supposed to be the opening night of Europe's biggest arena, the Co-op Live in Manchester tonight. They've just put this statement out. A 3rd postponement due to a venue-related technical issue. People actually in the venue have been sent home. We'll have the latest on our late news. It means Boogie with the Hoodie, the American rapper, will not be performing. But you knew he was an American rapper anyway. Have a great night. Thank you for watching.